Hey everybody, good morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host Anne, and disembodied Reaper brains John and Justin. I'm just going to envision them both as like little disembodied Reaper brains now. I think that's the way to go. With telekinetic powers so that they can push the keys. Yes. How's it going, guys? Thank you, Trashorama, for the resub 21 months. Dang. Another 3 and you'll be at your double sub-anniversary, which I love to say fast. Double sub-anniversary. Yes, triple sub-anniversary isn't as good, so it's good we're not there. Double sub-anniversary is awesome, though. That's say that 3 times fast. Yep. Hello, everybody. Hello. Yep. Hi, Love. Hi, Durham. Hi, Cornico. Hello, everybody. Astro Squee is gifting a sub to the Kundalini. Awesome. Congrats, Kundalini. You are now subbed to Reaper. You are fueling our awesome. That's just the way to think about that. Hello, Lord Nobody. I just don't think you're a nobody. I think you're probably a somebody, but that's just me. It's a Bryce. You guys can be disembodied brains if you want, Bryce. I mean, at least you're typing, you know. Like those guys. They show up if they feel like it. Yay, free sub to start the day. So before we begin, I have a small story to tell and a request personally from my heart, from Anne's heart. I received a message on Twitch this morning, which was essentially somebody talking about taking a tour at Reaper and seeing a certain product and asking if that was the product we used in our stuff. I hate these messages because they make me feel sad. Because essentially what I have to do then is tell you no, and that's proprietary information. Reaper is never going to give you proprietary information, and the fact that you're asking me implies that you think that I'm going to give you proprietary information. I'm really not going to do that. That's like an assault on my integrity, and it really hurts. So you might not think of it that way, but please don't ask me for formula information, guys. I'm not going to give it to you. I don't care if I'm part-time. I don't care if I leave Reaper and I'm just separate from Reaper. I'm never going to share with you the integral processes. The other thing you need to remember is that when you see a product that's being used at Reaper, remember that we are always exploring new things. So if you see a product on the paint desk, it's just as likely to be an experimental product as it is something that we use regularly. Also, different things go in different formulations. So don't jump to conclusions and don't spread all this stuff all over the internet. I spent 15 years making this awesome paint, and the last thing we want is for everybody else to run out and be able to do exactly the same thing. So yeah. So please don't. Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw it, Trouble. I make time for things. Monday was very busy. Sometimes I don't get to my email every day, but I saw it. I just haven't responded to it yet. But yes. So yeah, please do not ask me what goes into the paint. It's an agreement with Ed that I don't tell anybody how the special sauce, that goes into Master Series is made. So yeah, it just, like I said, it gives me a sad right away in the morning. So don't do it. Thank you. And I'm bringing it up because, oh, Dogfather, somebody texted me or didn't text me. Somebody messaged me asking what if we used a particular product. If I saw a product on the workbench and is this the product you use? I'm never going to answer that. And it just makes me feel bad. So don't ever ask me for ingredients. I'm just not going to tell you. I mean, this is the big agreement that Ed and I had when I kind of went apart from the company to do this, even though I'm still employed by Reaper. It's like, I can't tell you any proprietary formula information. I'm not going to do it. So, yeah. Well, and the thing is also that even if you knew, it wouldn't necessarily help you. But yeah, I mean, and who cares? Like, guys, does this even help you? Like, think about this, right? Like, let's go to Dwarfy Cam, but like, what really matters is how you use the paint and how the paint acts when you use it. And the ingredients that let you do that are interesting, which is why sometimes we'll share, like, this is a particular pigment that is in this color that helps you get more coverage, you know, but the chemical mix is just like, there's no reason. Like, it's like, what it is you work with the paint. I mean, I kind of figured out what Vallejo's base was made of, but I don't know their exact resin, and nor will I care, nor does it do me any good to know it. So No, not unicorn hairs, exactly. But I can't even confirm that, Ty. We might. All I can say is I don't think it's unicorn hairs because I don't think Ed has a stable of unicorns out in the big lot yet. He might be building one, though. Yeah. Oh, no trouble. It never gets lost. But yeah, paint formulation is kind of alchemy. I mean, you're trying to combine a bunch of stuff that doesn't necessarily want to combine because you got to match like pH and you got to match, you guys don't even know. Not all flow improvers work with all products. Not all surfactants work with all products equally, yada, yada, yada. So I responded to the person. It's not an NDA, Cranston. It's an agreement. It's a personal agreement, which is why I often feel like it's my ethics that are in question if you ask. Like, and I know it's not, but it still feels that way. So it's just like, and it gets frustrated. It's like, what could somebody do with the information if I did confirm it? Well, they could talk about it, right? And then all of our competitors will know what we use, so how does that benefit you? I don't get it. Other than being able to, say, ooh, I know what Reaper uses, but, no, not so much. Integrity exists, and it is here, folks. Like, the integrity buck stops here. So, yes, I know. It's surprising, isn't it, Bryce, that it still exists? And I own it. Probably it's my dad's crazy Navy slash, corporate integrity genetics coming out in me. But, Carnico, you're so funny. Right, Pan. And MSDS sheets are very useful and very applicable to you. Although sometimes they can be deceiving. Speaking as somebody who read an awful lot of them, they'll give you like hazard information for something that would never really apply unless you were aerosoling it, like stuff like that. So it's like, you also have to look at that. But MSDS is, we try to make everything as non-toxic as possible. So I've read an awful lot of MDS sheets. Anyway, or SDS sheets, I guess now they are. Safety. They just cut the M off of it. They've renamed them. But yeah, so chemical X. Yes, chemical X, exactly. But today's, let's face it, today's paint is very similar chemically across the board from one brand to the other. The biggest difference is the base resin, which gives you a higher or lower coverage, more transparency, less transparency, more adhesion, less adhesion. Adhesion equals durability, how well it sticks to the model. All of these things interplay then with any additives that you add and the pigment. So, but the pigments are very similar from company to company. Yeah. But yeah, so like I said, like we have people who contact us asking for every SDS sheet like that we use in all of our products. Ed has pretty much spent a lot of his time making a combined SDS sheet to incorporate everything because Master Series does, and it's like a lot of that like it's just like it's I don't know, I look at it and I'm like, I would never use paint that way. Okay, it's good to know I shouldn't use paint that way. But it's not flammable. Yeah, duh. I don't know. Oh, Dogfather, I hold myself to a high standard. The reason is that when I was a little kid, I told a lot of fibs. And at some point, I just remember having this clear thought in grade school that I didn't want to do it anymore. And so I stopped, like dead cold. And now I honestly cannot. I'm always going to give you the truth and I'm always going to be a straight shooter because it's so ingrained in me now that I don't ever tell a falsehood. Like I'll look you straight in the face and say, I can't tell you, but that's it. So I'm a very straight up Ann, I'm afraid. As Dave said, and this is actually my favorite Dave Pugh quote ever, is we were talking about my taxes and I was talking about my freelance work and he looked at me and he said, "You are regrettably honest." Best Dave quote ever. So yeah. And my favorite Ed quote is, no, we need more information. If we have enough information, then we can make a crappy decision. That's my favorite Ed quote. So both of them are probably going facepalm right now, but those are my favorite Dave and Ed quotes. Yeah, don't use paint for sandwiches. Exactly. Hey, we're finishing Dwarf today. Yay! Oh, and I can show you guys who the new model is. Wait. Let me get her card. So I said that we were going to stick with our weird, non-human things and non-player character things. Although she is a player character. Yeah. I like the truth. I think that truth is underrated. So this is what we're going to work on next. So after Dark Dwarf, I didn't prime her. I did clean her last night, but I didn't quite get to priming her. But yeah, so boom. So she is cool. I'm not a big fan of her little staff, so I was thinking about putting a crystal on the end of it. So I might put a crystal. But yeah, she's a half orc technically, but you could paint her as an orc for sure because she has little tusks and she has a cool hairdo and she's just fantastic. And it gives us a long dress that I can do some freehand on, stuff like that. So yeah, so I'm still thinking about colors, but I'm thinking we're gonna go red with her. Maybe some deep dark reds, like I used to do, almost a red velvet. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, it's so rare to see a good half-orc, a recently sculpted half-orc, and in a wizard at that, right? Not just a half-orc bruiser. So... Lanai's mom is actually human, and her father is orcish. So... Lanai's mom was a human sailor who got, like, her ship broke down from a storm, and they ended up in the cove. And so they actually did some limited interactions with the orcs for supplies and repairs. And she and her dad fell in love, and then her mom kind of adopted the orcish culture and moved in and had Lanai. And then when her father became one of the people to move inland, her mother was kind of split and just decided they essentially split apart. There's still some story there. You could bring them back together. But her mom was heartbroken and essentially went off to a temple somewhere in the mountains to kind of work it all out. And has been gone for years. So that's the story behind that character in my game. Jenna, I don't know. I was thinking about that. I was thinking about just going white with her, but then white is terrible under the camera. It all washes out. So I may do a zenith. I don't know. It doesn't really matter because when I do my old dark red, I start with a very dark brown and work up from there. So it's very dramatic. It's a very high drama red. So yeah, so here you go. Hey, D. Clearman. So yeah, the primer for this primer doesn't, I'm going to have a lot of darks on her and probably just the metallics are going to be bright accents. Her skin's going to go like an olivey green highlighted with skin tones, I think. We're going to play around with that and see. On a small model, it's harder to make that work, but we might be able to. But yeah, so that's what we're going to work on next. You can all get excited about that, but today's dude. Oh no, I'm not focused. I'm out of focus, baby. There we go. He's so close to done. Awesome. I need some metallics. Silver metallics this time, or steel metallics, as the case may be. Oh, the Reaper Pro Tip stream has always been an enabling stream. It's just only an enabling stream for Reaper products. It's focused enabling. It's not going to show you the latest Big Child Kickstarter and make you buy it like it did to me. Yeah, no, but make no mistake, this is a Reaper enabling channel. Always has been. Where's a lighter silver? Why am I having a hard time? There we go. True silver 207, that'll work. Excellent. Yeah, I think that's the lightest silver I've got, and I've got my pearl white, and I'm gonna shade with regular color, and I need my gray for the undercoat. Although, actually, yeah, let's do gray for undercoat. Although, I was thinking maybe I would use just something like gray liner or charcoal. Where's my charcoal gray? I haven't used my carbon gray, rather. It was charcoal gray, and I changed the name to carbon. Carbon is a nice dark gray, but it's still a little bit lighter than a black, so I'm going to use that today, I think. Remember, the darker your base under the paint, the shinier the paint usually looks. Haha, Cranston, good. Good, now you have to go out and use those paints. Yeah, it's a hyper-focused enablement. Yeah, but oh my god, like, I gotta stop. Like, I gotta start just... I've got so much stuff now, guys. Oh my god. Oh my god. And the problem is that the limbo stuff comes in those big boxes. Like, and so now my box of boxes, I have a secret box of boxes with all of the Kickstarters I've gotten this year. It is overflowing. I need a bigger box of boxes. And that's bad. That's bad. I have a problem, everybody. And I haven't gotten my Reaper one yet. Yeah, okay, so I have the Muses stuff, which is the female sculpts based on classical art, Bryce. I don't know if you've looked at those. I have almost all of those that came end of last year, beginning of this year. And then I've got the big child stuff, which thankfully I only went in 3 models on that. And then I just got my Limbo, and I went big on the Limbo because I missed the original 75 millimeter. So I ended up getting like 5 or 6. Gosh, it's just bad. It's bad. And then I've been ordering stuff from Ignis Art, and, you know, and then I'm waiting on my Obliteratum, like, Kickstarter, which is kind of the Egyptian funky animal people. And then I was like, I have a problem. My boxes no longer fit in my box. Yeah, no. But Fubeca, see, I get overwhelmed. Like, I really feel it when somebody, one of you guys, talks about being overwhelmed by how many projects you've got going, or how many projects you have on your shelf of lost love, or whatever else you're dealing with. Like, I feel it. Like, I'm there. That's why I hide my box of boxes. Because all of those are so beautiful, and I want to paint them all. But if there's too many of them, then I feel buried. And that's a big creativity inhibitor for me. Like, big time. So I have to take it and put it away, so I cannot see it. And then I have the joy of when it's time for a new model, I get to go and dig in the box and see who fights for my love the most, you know. Don't even Clearman. I don't even know. Like, do you have a freaking maze in your basement? Like, are you building off other rooms out of your basement at this point? Like, are you gonna, like, you know, you've got to have a secret reinforced basement. That's all I could say is, like, there's got to be, like, this vault. The vault of miniature treasure, guys. We should all make an adventuring party and go and raid D. Clearman's basement. Like, seriously. Plus, he has 3D printed stuff. Alrighty, I'm going to get my carbon gray out, darn it. And I'm going to add actually just a touch of white to it. I want it just a tad lighter so that it stands out a little bit. Just a little bit. There. Yeah, I think we need to make a miniatures adventuring party and just go raid other people's miniature collections. They're never going to get to painting all that stuff. We know it. Like, we should raid Ron's desk, too. Like, we'd need to be at least a level 6 adventuring party for Ron's desk. Seriously. Enough ranks and disable the disabled device to raid D. Clearman's basement. Well, right, I went splat. That's why I have to stop looking. I have so much stuff. Yeah, Val, see, you're drowning, right? And that's how I feel. So that's why I just box it up and put it away. And I try to limit the amount of stuff that's sitting on my desk at any given time, because that also is a huge creativity disabler for me. Like, it really, really hits me hard. And I get, especially with all the Patreon stuff that I'm working on and commissions on top of it all, finding time to work on my own stuff is hard. Oh, well, Muses, you're now on the raid list. Congratulations. Yeah, all you people who just want a random adventuring party of miniatures geeks to break into your house and take away like a third of your collection, just leave the stuff that you're not as in love with out, you know, in boxes. We'll take it. We'll get it. We'll fight your rust monsters and your Odiugs and get it. Yeah, Ron's office is Indiana Jones. Yes, we're going to exactly. We need to bring a bag of sand and a whip and maybe some rope. 30 feet of rope at least. Well, yeah, Carrie Michael, that's normal. But out of sight for the day-to-day, I think, is key. So I don't even really keep a shelf of Lost Love anymore. Like, if I'm not actively painting on it, and I know I'm not going to work on it in, like, the near future, I put it away. I box it up and put it away, even if it's partially painted. And I try to really limit that. These days, I am striving to get rid of, i.e. finish, stuff that is either I finish or I toss it, or I think about stripping it and giving it away. We're just gonna base coat with this carbon gray. It's been lightened just a tad with a touch of white, just because I wanted it a little lighter so it's easier for me to see. And let's see, do we have anything else? Any little catches? No other little jewelry or any weird stuff here that needs to be silver? Nope. Very little silver on this model. Or steel, I should say. Yeah, you have a 3D printer problem. Well, before you had an airbrush problem. And I mean, really, Val, you had time to reevaluate. I mean, I think that if we ever got a 3D printer, I would be just, if I wanted to print stuff, I would print it and then give it to my friends. Like, it would be tempting just to do that. Like, because otherwise it's just gonna, my backlog of amazing is just gonna back up. And I've gotten very selective. I mean, David thinks I need to be even more selective, but he's gotten just as many Kickstarters as me. He just paints faster. He has more time to paint. He's not doing it for a living as well. So for me in the evenings, it's always a big question of, am I going to work on my commissions or am I going to work on something for me, right? And most of the time, the commissions have to win out. So the time that Anne has to spend painting her very own stuff is limited. And it means I don't paint as fast. But I don't know. I'm planning for this weekend to be a big painting weekend, so. Alrighty, so we've got that nice dark gray. That's going to make a really good base for our silver. It's just going to make it look shinier. Gotta get that little connector up there. There we are. I think that we don't have anything else we want silver back here. No. Well, Val, you got to start giving it away. Give it away, sell it, do whatever you have to, depending on your financial situation. Oh, we can do a dark gray on the ground, too, and repeat that. Yeah, let's do some dark gray down on these little cobblestones, because I think I want to make, like, a forge lighting effect down here slightly. So let me get this blue tack a little bit away from the base. I'm going to do the rim in black, but we can take this gray and put a nice layer of it down. It'll set off his gold boot tips very well. Or his copper boot tips, I'm afraid. Cool, Fubeka. Yeah, at that point, Amy, it's just better, I think, to just, patronize the people who have 3D printers who are really good at it and who sell, who are willing to take your STL file and print it out for you. For one thing, it keeps your hobby better under control. And for two, those people are actually, like, trying to kind of make some extra money. And so I'm all for that. People who have the individual skills and decide that they'd like to kind of use it as a side gig in today's world, I'm like all for that. I would not be where I am if I had not decided to side gig my painting. So yeah, I am cool with supporting all those people printing out 3D models for those of us who aren't able. Alrighty. Just getting this nice dark gray. It's cooler because the standard coal black pigment tends to shift blue. There's no blue in this actually, but it will appear cooler, especially next to reddish and orange surfaces because lamp black is a blue shifting black pigment. It's a cold black pigment. It's why some of our original metallic steels looked a bit blue. It actually wasn't that we put blue pigment in. That was the way that this shifts. So if you want a true neutral metallic and you're working with this sort of pigment, you actually have to add both brown and black. Usually you add an umber and black pigment to get it to go neutral. Because otherwise it will shift cool. So a little tidbit information for you guys. So, wow. And you have a tiny space to live in, love. How are you fitting your 3D printer in it? Like, it must take up a wall. I'm just imagining this giant machine. Like from, I don't know if anybody else reads the webcomic Girl Genius, but like Castle Heterodyne only in 3D printer form. Alrighty, we get in there. Pigments are silly. Well, pigments are just pigments. You learn how they operate, and then you become a better painter of hand. The printer gets the bed. Love gets the couch. Hee hee hee. That's funny. Yeah, but we have to, I've totally got to put brakes on the acquisition of miniatures. So I'm going to have to, like, you know, carefully not look at the supplies talk, i.e. enablement channel in my Discord. I mean, when David, who really does have a problem, is telling me I have a problem, then you know it's bad. You fell out of love with it? Yeah, I mean, they're just going on and 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 on. But I enjoyed the one in Londinium, the latest one, Shadow Raven. I enjoyed the Londinium one. It's one of three webcomics that I read, so I'll read it until it really turns me off with something, but I'm all right with it right now. Yeah, it's a soap opera. Well, and rightfully so, guys. I mean, they're making their living from this. So, I mean, if you're making your living from it, you don't have a lot of choice unless you launch something new. But when you've got a valuable IP and people want more, you're going to make more. It doesn't speak to anything bad about you. It's just the way that freelancing life works. I mean, it's sad sometimes. I mean, you see it a lot in TV shows, right, where they just decide to keep going until they totally jump the shark. But I don't think Girl Genius has jumped the shark yet. It still feels like some elements of the story are stuff that Kaya came up with ages ago and are being resolved. So, although it is erratic. I have them in a box, I think. I have the Virtual Expo colors in the box, but I have not used them, Crows. I'm working around to it. Oh yeah, Aradia. Yeah, I mean, David likes the Aradia a little more than I do. Although I do like the Toad model that we were working on together. All right, so I've got that settled in. That's cool. We won't paint the rim around the base till the very end. So now we can get some metallics going on. So we're going to be using 207 True Silver. I don't think we ever know that for sure, Chibi. Like, they still haven't put out stuff like Kraken Ink, so it really depends, but I suspect it depends more on, with the paint department is always slammed. And I'm sure that with the pandemic, with a lot of people getting into the hobby, the paint department has been even more slammed because the biggest thing that we do is the Learn to Paint kits. Like, we are constantly flipping those sets, constantly. So the amount of room that we have to introduce a new product is very small. Plus, we've been doing the Kickstarter. Remember, we've got Kickstarter coming up, and there's fulfillment on those colors, which means that Sadie is having to do, you know, tens of thousands of bottles of each of those colors. Like, it is not, or thousands of bottles at the very least, but it's a lot. Let's put it that way. It's a lot of flipping. So she's having probably to wrestle the Learn to Paint kit situation with the Kickstarter fulfillment situation right now, which means that you're not going to get new releases in Paint. There's just no room for them. Ed will go, no, we have to keep up with Learn to Paint kit, and we need to get the Kickstarter out. So, well, they may put them out eventually. It's just really not good timing right now, I think. That would be my guess. Yeah, I've so far mostly avoided Monster Hunter, although I have an action figure sized model, garage kit style model of the Chiron armor. So, just because it was cute. It was too cute, and so I found it, and then I had to buy it. This is why I say just don't look. So we're just gonna, like, put a really solid, see how bright that silver is over this dark color. So carbon gray, guys. And this is one I actually feel like we really don't want it to go out of print. It's the only charcoal gray I've done. It's actually formulated so that if you put it down and put a black wash over the top, you can get a very fast, quick shaded black. Like it's super fast gaming model black. If you just put down carbon and then you do a wash of black over the top. It's tuned to do that and to create a good black that way. Something that looks like black but still shows highlights. So if you are a fast painter, do not underestimate the carbon gray. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I couldn't believe it. When I came up with the idea for that color, I was just like, wait, we don't have anything that's a charcoal gray? We haven't actually had a charcoal gray in the line all this time? Because Stormy Gray is quite a bit lighter than charcoal. I mean, this is really a very good base color for any steel metallic you do. Because when it's this dark, everything else is gonna pop against it. So your little chain links show up really crisply. The small paint kits is 6 bottles. Yeah, Luthar, that's something that Ed has long referred to as low-hanging fruit, is something that he felt Reaper should have gotten into long ago, and other things just distracted us. Because he feels like that is a definite product that people would embrace and really enjoy. Just gonna get the sides here a little bit. And the insides. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer to do themed sets like that. It's not as good probably for people who have a lot of the paint already, right? Because they're bound to have like 1 or 2 of the colors already. But for people who are getting in and who are like working on armies or specific encounters for their D&D game or whatever you say. Yeah, it's not quite that dark, but yeah, Mountain Stone is close. It's just a little bit lighter. But yeah, I mean, this is... I actually did experiments for this, and I actually gave it to Games Workshop people, customers, and asked them to use it with the black wash and tell me if it worked, right? And then I did some experiments on my own to judge it. We tuned this sucker to within an inch of its life. Like, sometimes it was just a bit too light, and sometimes it was a bit too dark. And then finally we hit what we felt was, like, perfect for fast black. I mean, it'll also benefit if you put another highlight on it, but it's really, it's a really good fast black. If you have a bunch of, like, mooks or, soldiers or evil things or whatever you're painting black, and you have an encounter to paint, or an army, it'll speed things up. We do occasionally do that with Reaper. We do sometimes go for the speed things up rather than, the long paint approach. But that is one of those colors that I think is a great tool. It's also a great tool if you're highlighting black with a grayish color and you want that. This is that first highlight. Like if you don't want it to, if you want a decent layering, this, and then usually I'll mix in something, right? Because you want to mix a little bit of some other color into your gray if you don't want it to look like a pencil drawing. All right, so we've got some nice silver. Let's put some shading. Oh, I didn't get the top. Didn't get the front. No. Oh, the paints are on the site now, Chibi? There you go. Well, then they had some time. I just remember juggling it with the paint department. You're always juggling what's the priority. And often you have 5 priorities at one time. So for your mental health, and Sadie's mental health, you have to balance. Sometimes a real balancing act. So yeah, if they're on the site, that's great. Is the Kraken ink on the site, Chibi? Because I want to buy another bottle of that if it is. Oh, you got plasma. Oh, you can get them individually. Got it. MH. Oh, Monster Honey Hunter. Ah, okay. Yeah, it's a Kickstarter set. It's Carbon Gray, Moonstone Gray, and Misty Gray. Or Foggy Gray. Those are that. It's the Stone and Mist triad. Because I really wanted that Moonstone in there too. And the Foggy is a pure gray off-white, which Leather White is not. Alrighty, let's get some... Interesting. All right. What do we shade this with? We already have some purples. We went a little bit blue with our black highlights. There are so many things you can shade steel with, and often it benefits from a couple of different colors. But when you do layer washes or glazes over the top of your metallics to provide complicated shading, make sure that you are paying attention to what your first color is going to be. The first color you put down has more influence than the following colors. So if I were to go blue with my first wash on these, like blue liner, that would give these a very strong blue shift, even if I then put like browns and reds over the top. Whereas if I start with a brown, it's going to make them look a lot dirtier. Even if I put a blue on later, it's not going to have the strength. So it's the first wash over the metallic that has the heaviest strength. So that's where you ask yourself if you're just going to go neutral, like with a black wash, or if you're going to go maybe black with a little bit of color, or if you're going to go straight for the blue liner or the brown liner or whatever you're going to do. Yeah, Kroniko, sadly, the overseas shipping has really hit us hard. I think I'm going to go brown-ish. Let me see. Did David steal my brown liner again? No. Okay, I've got it. So I'm going to go a little bit brownish here. I'm going to say this guy does not take as good care of his manacles as he does his the rest of his armor. Misty Gray, yeah. I did everything, Ty, up until Brinewind, the Brinewind colors. So I did everything up through Pathfinder. So anything in Master Series with a number lower than 9320 or 9325, I think. I don't remember, 9326? Maybe that was I think that was the highest we went last Kickstarter. And I designed the new Kickstarter colors, so technically also those. But yeah, the special sets that have been coming out for the expos and ReaperCon, like the Brinewind colors and these new the new expo colors, those are Sadie. But otherwise, I only left a year ago, so it's only the paint that's come out in the last year. Don't hate us because of all the beautiful stock. That's funny. All right, so I'm going to go with brown liner, but I am going to add a little bit more of another brown. I think I'm going to add a little bit of russet to it. And then maybe work in a little bit of rust toward the interior of these little manacles. I don't know. On a 28, you don't have a lot of room to weather, but you can still suggest some. So let's see if I nailed the brown that I want here. Where's my mixing brush? There it is. So we're going to be doing this as a wash. So we're going to add some brush-on sealer to it, if I can find my brush-on sealer. I was digging for it the other day, and I dug out a new bottle of it, and then I misplaced it again, because apparently that's how I roll. Ah, there it is. Yay, I found it! So we want to shake this up, remember, very, very well. We want to make sure we can't see the bead in the bottom. And see that layer of stuff right there? We want that stuff to be in solution. When you have your brush-on sealer, the matting medium in it that makes it, more of a satin or matte, definitely falls out of solution. And if you don't shake it well enough and get that in solution, now I can see, if I can see bubbles or I can see like kind of a variation here, like I can see it's mostly off. Maybe I need a little bit more. But if you don't do that, then when you get down to the last half of the bottle, if you do shake it, it's going to go frosty. Like it's going to be bad. So, and plus the stuff you've been using up to then was going to be more glossy than you want. There we go. All right, now I can see kind of a bubble form. See that bubble? See, you can see all that stuff is now off of the bottom. So that's great. Now we can squeeze it out. And let's see here, about 6 drops because I have 2 drops of paint on my palette. Or actually 8 drops, I guess, with my new formulation. This color just wants to be very annoyed at me. Come on, come on. Yeah, this spout is like, I am clogged and I cannot lie. Let's see here. Let's try to just do that there. There we are. Lots of sealer. Yeah, I have never played the Monster Hunter games. I just thought the Kyrin Or Kieran, armor was cute. So I'm actually not going to, I'm going to mix this up before I decide how much water I'm going to put in it. It's kind of a thick goo right now. It still seems to have a lot of coverage. Although if you spread it out, see that it is transparent. So this is me just spreading it out. And then you can see it looks very opaque still here until you do this. And that's the gummy feel that you get is because we haven't added more fluid. We've just added more base. So if you want that to really go to wash, that's when you take some water. Now it has flow ability. Now you see what you've done. It doesn't stay. It's more of almost a paste if you just use the sealer in it. But then when you add a little bit of water, you want to be able to see that self-leveling. You have to be able to see that self-leveling for it to be a good wash. So, oh, Luther, all of those are oopses. Like, almost all of them are oopses. Yeah, samples are essentially where we try to mix a color and maybe we screw it up because Ed's standing there talking to us. And so we don't waste it. We put it out as samples because it actually sells our paint really well. Over the years, we've gotten so many new people who never ordered our paint but got a sample and liked it and then bought into the paint line. So it's a way for us to use the oopses because often if you oops a color, depending on the pigment that you put in, you can't back it out and you can't make it into something else because all of our formulas are really precise. So sometimes we'll use the sample as kind of a test market for a potential new color, but more often it will not be replaced. It will not be redone. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, as somebody who has been distracted by Ed and put the wrong color into a paint, I think I absolutely can blame Ed's filibustering. Yeah, it's no waste, exactly. And this is something, I didn't even come up with this. Reaper's been doing this since before I came to Reaper, so more than 18 years ago. Over all that time, Reaper has been doing samples. Because you always screw up a formula somewhere. So, but yes. Alrighty, so now we can apply this. And how strong you make it is up to you. But what I've got here is a very umbery color. So if I put it here, I'm going to see it's not going to color it very much, but it's going to dirty up this silver a bit. So if I put it on just over the whole thing, it's just going to dirty it up a little bit. And the reason I like to use opaque paint to shade metallics is that if you've got dirt or grime or tarnish or, you know, something is in shadow, it isn't really going to be shiny. Like, where you see metal shine is when the light hits it and it's, like, especially where areas where it's polished or abraded. So that dulls it down quite a bit with that first layer. To make his steel a little tarnished, I think. And it just takes a thin layer. I'm not really even doing a wash per se. I'm not necessarily allowing it to pool. Like, it's pooling a little bit here in the middle of these links. And that's not a big deal. But I think that the samples are from the US, Lord Nobody, because that's where our paint factory is. So we've got no reason to ship samples to the UK unless it's something special like Breast Cancer Awareness Pink, then maybe. But I don't know that it's practice. Yeah, UK does not have a paint department, so the UK does not generate paint, so it does not generate oopses. So then essentially we'd be paying, essentially if we shipped them to the UK, Lord Nobody, we'd be paying extra shipping money to ship a product that doesn't cost anything, that is a free product. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. And especially with how heavy paint is. Yeah, it's really, really rare, Korniko, because like I said, it's sending a free product. So now we have a shade on the manacles, so when we go back in with our regular color, we can highlight that. But I think I need actually more, so I'm going to go with a little bit of blue. We'll do blue liner next. I really like the overlay of brown and blue on metallics, so on steel specifically. And sometimes it's fun to throw a green in there if you're like making something a little bit weird. By the way, if you don't want to use, if you do want it to be shiny, like if, say, you're doing something that's like, there's been oil on the armor and dirt gets caught in the oil, so it still has a little bit of sheen to it because it's an oil, then you can use a gloss sealer in the same way I'm using the matte sealer. Where is it? And all of this, actually, some of the techniques I use for shaded metallics come from Curel, but not this one. Because there's not enough room to do a lot on this. Yeah, that's about right. So now I'm going to pick a bluish. And I'm keeping it dark because I want to darken down this metal so that I can kind of bring up there's my blue liner. Bring up some highlights on it. Awesome, Danger Man. Yeah, I mean, it's an experience, right? So David and I were arguing yesterday, guys. And I'm totally going to put this to you guys because I'm curious about your opinion, because he and I had totally different opinions on it. So if 3D printing gets to the point where you can produce, like, say you could go out and buy this guy instead of, like, say that you could 3D print something to this quality, right? And you could just go out and buy this, or you could buy a blank mini. Like, do you think the mini painting hobby would survive that? And I say it would, because the quilting hobby has survived, and there are plenty of gorgeous mass-produced quilts out there. So I think people will still want to paint minis, even if they can go out and buy an Ann Forster or a Derek Schubert quality colored 3D print. But David disagrees. He thinks our hobby is for dead if you can just go out and buy this guy instead of having to paint your own. And the price point, obviously it's slightly dependent on the price point, but he's of the opinion that even if it was double the price, our hobby would die. Yeah, it will change. Right, Krios. That was my opinion too. Maybe not as far off as you think, Val. I don't know. The 3D printing technology is racing because so many different industries are using it. So fun is in the painting. No, it'll survive. Yeah. Polaris wants to agree with David. You think it would survive? Right. I kind of agree on that level, D. Clearman. Like, I think people would still paint. Right. I went splat. That's exactly, yeah. I think GW people, like GW would probably just start selling pre-painted miniatures and go that way. And so then what David's point is that once that happens, so many of us got into the mini painting hobby through Games Workshop, we lose that doorway. Like, we lose that way to get people into the hobby. And it's a big way. So then he's like, that's why the hobby just slowly starts to die. But that's true in a Medzik somewhat, but I was a GW person, and I didn't get into mini painting because of Games Workshop. I got in because of D&D. So then you got to ask yourself, okay, well, is the role-playing game market still a thing? Well, D&D is definitely going to be putting out pre-paints if it can make money that way, right? So, David's point is that you lose a lot of the entry-level areas that suck people into the hobby initially. So then you have to ask yourself, how do we iterate from that? How do we touch new fans? How do we get new fans for the hobby? Because I think enough people know about miniature painting in the greater world now, although we can always do better. But yeah, so it's he and I really disagree. Yeah, they do, but they're not as good. His point is, Lord Nobody, is not that you get a 3D colored mini, but that you can get a 3D colored mini that looks like this. That's this quality. Like, you could get Derek Schubert or Jennifer Haley equivalent mini. You know, you could get an Ann equivalent mini, you know, for $20 or $25 or whatever, right? Maybe not. I mean, it's hard to say from outside of it, right, Pendrake? Because, you know, when you're not in that community, you can never really make a useful assessment. I mean, as somebody who has worked for Games Workshop in the retail haven, a lot of kids get into mini painting. A lot of kids get into mini painting because of Games Workshop. Yeah, well, hypothetically, Roger, I mean, technically, if you can 3D print it, you could 3D print variations as well. Right, Fubecker, right. That's interesting, Krios. That's an interesting thought. But remember the high labor cost there, too. because, you're printing, but then you have to remove all the vents and clean up the model, right? So you have printing time, assuming that's gone, assuming that's become really fast by that point. But then you also need the actual labor and expertise to clean each model, unless they can somehow, do it to make that faster. Right, D. Clearman. Yeah, so that's why I use quilt. I think quilting is a very good example. You can buy a lovely quilt that works really well and is really professionally done. Just go to the store, any old store, and buy a quilt. But there are still people who do quilting, and there's a huge amount of them that do quilting, and it's more of an art form now, right? It's both. It's a usable art. And it's a very popular hobby. So I really feel that humans gravitate toward things they can do with their hands. And so I feel like it will not kill our hobby. It may change it, but it won't kill it. Yeah, right. Well, and mini painting is passed down through a family. Absolutely it is. Like the number of families bringing their kids, parents bringing their children to paint club because they paint minis and now their kids paint minis. There you go. Yeah, Pan, I don't think the hobby's going to die. I mean, I really believe that David is over-exaggerating. Like I said, okay, one of the things that made me feel better about this hobby, like back when I was first starting out thinking of, of doing freelancing and being a professional, and a lot of people were telling me, why are you wasting your time on all those little pewter figures or all those little plastic figures? Why don't you do canvas, right? And I think one of the main things that changed my mind about all of it is that I had friends out in Baltimore, and one of them had lupus and another one had like anxiety, and there were a lot of people that went to the hobby not because they had to paint miniatures for their game, but because it was a way for them to get away from the bad stuff. And that was quite a decent proportion of the people I have met do mini painting because it makes them feel better. It makes them feel good. It lets them get out of their own heads for a while. It gets them in their zone, right? You can just kind of go with it. And you're making something that you can be proud of that's really pretty, that's awesome. Maybe you're not a great painter yet, but, you're making progress and feeling good about yourself, right? And all these reasons have absolutely nothing to do with, whether there's a pre-painted version available. You're going to pick the unpainted version anyway. Well, the miniatures market at that point needs to figure out what it's going to do. Like, right, the companies need to figure out, are we going to pivot to the painted model, to the pre-colored model? Or are we going to pivot to support this hobby thinking there will still be a market there, right? That's the big gamble, the big question, if this became a thing. Or when this becomes a thing. And will you instead support the hobby? Or will you sell the quilt or will you sell the scraps? What are you going to do? What are you going to gamble on, right? It's an interesting question. None of us can possibly tell the way it will go. But my money is on people painting minis because they love to paint minis. And we won't get people into the hobby necessarily as quickly unless we can find a new outlet to get them in. Well, this just assumes that the technology is equivalent to magic. Like, go ahead 50 years. Can we even imagine what 3D printing will be like in 50 years? No. We have no freaking idea. Somebody's going to make up some incredible... There will be leaps in the technology. There will be huge leaps. I mean, because so many industries are using it, right? So, when you've got so many industries using 3D printed products now... Remember that, if you go to Reaper and take the tour and see Audrey, our paint pumping machine, remember that Audrey is a lot of 3D printed parts and that the company that made her does medical supply machines that also are a bunch of 3D printed parts. So think about not just your miniatures, but the fact that 3D printing is evolving hugely overall in the world. I mean, there are 3D printed houses now for reals. For reals. In a warehouse-sized 3D or a garage-sized 3D printer, they print them in sections. I'm not making this crap up either. Like, this is a thing. So, it's only a matter of time. Yeah, I think you're right, Quindy. I think it would change it. It'll definitely change it. And again, I think it's going to be how it changes is going to depend on how the companies decide to roll with it, right? I mean, I can see smaller producers like Ignis Art in the European places that are doing like one-off, the bust in resin, and they do one every 3 months or 2 months. Those places I can see staying with the painting hobby. Because that's where they are. They're in the art, right? That they're in the art business. They're not in the supply business, the finished supplies business. And so I think you see Games Workshop go away from the hobby at that point, because the hobby does not make them the majority of their money unless they can see a reason not to. But with GW being publicly traded, it's going to be what the shareholders think. So now I'm going back in with my metallic, and I'm going to keep my shadows. See how much more 3D these look now? Because I put those 2 washes on, it's darkened down my metallic and enables me to re-highlight while having some complexity and not totally covering over. And it's a lot sharper. This is a lot sharper of a result than if I had tried to paint it with dark metallic moving up. Because I'm able to control. The thing about this is that I'm able to control where the shine is. Because I've taken the shine down on areas with wash on them, and then I can bring the shine back up on areas where I'm reapplying the metallics. Yeah, it's stretch time. I can do it. Hold on. Yeah, the maker movement as a whole. Biggest draw to being a maker is the personal satisfaction of doing something with your own hand. Exactly, dear D. Clearman, and that's why I think it's not going to die. Because, a lot of us nerds, this is kind of what we go for. Like I said, it depends on the role-playing game market, too. All right, so we'll halt there. I'm going to go in and even put a little bit of darker shading in there. Yeah, we need some way. Ancient humans worked with their hands all the time. It's something we've done since our species came out, no matter what origin tale you believe. But I think humans have a need to work with their hands, and some of us cook, and some of us do other stuff, right? I'm gonna get a thing. And yeah, we just need something to get us away from our corporate lives or our whatever lives we have. There we go. Push this in. Stretch time, everybody. If you've been sitting around for 1 hour or so, get up, stretch. Yeah, that's the good thing, right, Pan? It does mean that if you don't want to paint that unit of goblins, you can just get them pre-painted. And then you can choose to paint the goblin leader, who you think is kind of cool. And there'll be people also who do repaints, right? Just like the Hero Clicks repaints. People who decide they don't like the original paint job and they want to paint something else. Do a stretch, everybody. There we go. And remember that I am not streaming on my personal channel today. It's Thursdays only. Thursdays only. I'm working on a lot of stuff for the Patreon for May, so I want to get all the special offer stuff done. Right, that's why Ed swore that Reaper would never be publicly traded, Pendrake. Ed wants to control the business. Now, who knows if Ed retires, what will happen when Ed retires, eventually. You can still do stretches lying down, Val. Just pull your arm across your chest and do a shoulder stretch. But do something. When I hurt my back, they told me lying down was the worst thing I could do for it. But you do you. It's all you. If you want to lie down during my stream, rock it. Yeah, 4 on Thursdays. No, not Pacific time. It's 4, it's for me, it's 2 p.m. Pendrake. It's 4 Central Time. I always try to give my times in Central Time, because most of you are used to doing Reaper time. And so I state my times in Reaper time. Yeah, Val, how you doing? Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, that's too bad. I hope you feel better, Val. I mean, Ed, there are several people. I mean, there's Ron, you know, there are people who work at Reaper that Ed could groom for the position when he wants to, you know, not worry about Reaper anymore. But yeah, who knows? I don't think he'd sell it to shareholders. I don't think he'd take it public, guys. He's very against that, from at least in the old days. I mean, things can change, but just let me do these cat cows and I'll be back. Alrighty. Doo-doo-doo. I am back. More or less. Boing! Boing! I return. I think that you suck, Windows. Why are you giving me alerts? There we go. Tacos! Yeah, if you're getting better, that's cool. Yeah, Ed has always been against. He always said, at least in the early days of Reaper, when he would talk more about it, that the GW's biggest mistake was going public because they have a hard time pivoting and perceiving the market. And he has other reasons too. I am always an imperfect source for regurgitation of Ed wisdom. But Ed essentially, like, believes, rightfully so, I believe, that, you know, he has a better view, more realistic view of the industry than a shareholder would. So let's get it close in. Boop. Alrighty. So we've got some of this, and we can tune it. We still have both of our washes. So I can shade a little bit more where I want to. Now this is metal too, so we'd have some reflections. At this point I have to ask myself, is the area large enough that I can do an under reflection? And yeah, it probably is. So a little bit of undercolor and see if I like it. Because pretty much, there we go, a little bit more. That's a little bit better. Because really, remember, on small metal surfaces, like when you're doing NMM, you want your main highlight, your shadow, and then kind of an under reflection that is bounced light coming back from the environment. So we can do that on these. But I may have to accentuate the shadow a little bit more. Yeah, there are a lot of people at Reaper who are really smart about the industry and about the hobby. Getting in a little bit more shadow here to make it brighter so then you can see the reflections. We're keeping it fairly simple on this one, but I think it's fun to play around. And now if I really wanted to pick up that, I could just use my pearl white for the highest highlights. Hey GVD, thanks for that resub. Tier 1 for 11 months, thank you. Yeah, you could do that, nobody. I mean, it's valid, right? This is just a different way to do it. Like, one show, if you want speed painting tips, Josh on Miniature Monday here on Reaper, he, I think, does a much faster type of painting than I do. So his is more like good tabletop, how to get good tabletop. So that's also a good show to watch if you want to, more like quick tips. I know the stuff that I do is more how to take your paint job and make it look really good. That's kind of my strength. And guns are hard to paint, so. All right, more. I think I need a little thicker. I like the look of shading on my metallics, so I tend to go there. And then my pearl white is even lighter. And that is for the highest points. So remember, pearl white is your metallics highlight color. It's the equivalent of the little bit of pure white to make NMM look right. It just forces a highlight where you want it, instead of where the metallic might want to shine. And because it is a metallic itself, it will of course pick up light. Another way to force this would be to use some gloss sealer where you want it to be really shiny. But now we have nice metal manacles. Metal manacles. Awesome. 5 months of experience, you are trying all the things. Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, try a bunch of other stuff. There is definitely an order of techniques I think sometimes is useful. Lord Nobody, if you want to, I have a free PDF about it on my Patreon. Things like, you know, like washes and lining and layering and wet blending and like kind of the order to try them in if you don't know which to try when. And then it also lists all of the conceptual techniques like directed lighting and NMM and stuff like that. It's my Patreon is patreon.com/paintingbig, and you don't have to sign up to get that PDF. It's free, but it'll give you a list of techniques to try if you're looking for one. And it'll also maybe alert you to places where your techniques that you just kind of skipped over and didn't try. Like if you went straight to NMM and you didn't try to learn layering, like, or if you went straight to OSL without like learning how to glaze, stuff like that. There we go. Nice shiny highlights, and I'm going to get a little bit of a back reflection as well, because metal will always reflect the surroundings. It won't just be a highlight and then down to shadow like cloth might be. Alrighty. Shiny, shiny. Very shiny. I think this dude is done, guys. Except for his, like, base. I think he's done. Vallejo pot turned into a toothpaste-like sludge. Oh, it's because they use a heavier base. It's the same thing, Harumph. The same reason that Vallejo covers so well is the reason that happens. Because the resin they use is very heavy. So essentially it will slowly fall out of solution faster than Reaper will. And I wouldn't say Reaper is safe from that. I'd say it would take Reaper a very long time to do that. But the thicker resin that Vallejo uses that gives it that high coverage is heavy. So it falls out of solution faster. So essentially then all of the water, the binder, goes to the top. And the resin settles at the bottom. And if you don't put it back in solution, then it's going to permanently settle out. Essentially, just like silt on the bottom of a river, it will compress and compress and compress and compress over time into mud and then eventually to rock. So it's that same process. So that's why it's key, I think, to put like little agitators in your Vallejos and keep them shaken up if you use them. I'm just shading around the feet with some of the washes that I had earlier mixed up. Putting a shadow directly under his body, because we don't really need to highlight all those little stones. Get a little shadow there. Yeah, shake your paint. I mean, it will happen to any paint, but it's just the heavier the resin, the faster it will happen. And some Vallejos are notorious for it, like the oranges and yellows. But yeah, when you go with a finer resin, you get you lose the intrinsic coverage because you lose that goopiness, but you get back a couple of things too. You increase transparency, but you also get greater durability. Whereas the thicker resins don't have as good durability. They don't stick to the model as well, and they don't take pressure as well. They don't take damage as well. They aren't as durable, and they don't adhere as well. But you get the coverage, and a lot of companies these days have heavily invested in pushing like coverage because, you know, if you're painting a gaming model, you just want fast coverage. But when you start doing techniques to make your models look better, stuff like layering and glazing, you need more transparency, or transparency will work with you at that point and coverage will fight you. I used to have to thin my Vallejo so much to get it to the point where I could layer with it, or I could blend with it. There we go. So we've got some separated out little stones. Probably need to use walnut for that. Yeah, I mean, you just need to kind of shake them and judge whether you can, you know, if you can hear it swoosh around in there, you're probably okay. I still have a couple of Vallejo colors hanging around just because I really like their vermilion and their Oxford blue. But I don't use it very often because it's just, I have to, when I used to use Vallejo for everything, back before I started at Reaper, I had to seal it all the time. Like, between every couple layers, I had to seal it to try to make it more durable and prevent rub-off. Yeah, the goop at the bottom has really good coverage. If you can get it to spread, eat. Judge Greg, what was that? Oh, Vallejo settles out faster over time. So if you have an old bottle of Vallejo, it's more likely to have kind of vinylized at the bottom, latexed, become a plug at the bottom of the bottle, and there'd be a lot of water on top. You kind of have to, like, just make sure. I mean, it takes a while. It takes a couple of years usually, guys. So, I mean, most paint in a store, unless it has been sitting there for years, it shouldn't be too bad, but I mean, it takes a long time. But it is something that happens. It is a known issue. All right. Cool. Oh, we didn't really do much with the back here. Well then, we've got a little time, right? Yeah, we got about 15, 20 minutes. Let's take our carbon gray and suggest a little bit of wood grain on the inside of the shield. And I'll mix in some blue liner just to give it a little bit of a different tone. Max, I mean, I like the glass beads we use at Reaper. You can use bits of hobby sprue as well. I don't like BBs. Unless you know that it's a very high quality stainless steel. If you know that it's a high quality stainless steel, it may be okay. I still don't trust them. All right, that's a little too dark, so I'm going to add some white. But, I mean, going and buying some cheap glass beads at a Hobby Lobby, it's super cheap and works great. Hematite beads can be great too because they're also non-reactive. They're more expensive though. I'm gonna lighten up this color just a tad, and I'm gonna grab some of my, I don't remember if I went walnut or black for the back of this, but we're gonna go black this time. There it is. Yeah, volcanic glass is heavier than regular glass. Just kind of weigh them, figure out. But it only takes a little bit of extra weight to be a decent agitator. For MSP, you may want something heavier. You may want to invest in hematite for your, or whatever, for your Vallejo if you have those. Because Vallejo is a heavier body base, so a lighter bead it will not do as well. Although I add a little water to Vallejos, and then I add at least 3 beads, and that seems to work fine. But glass is non-reactive, so There's a lot of places that sell like the stainless steel BBs now, and maybe they're fine. I heard so many horror stories about them when I was starting my journey in paint that I have a big trust issue there. We're just gonna do some little boards here. And then we're going to, you can see where I've got this is the start of something. So something heavy for Vallejo and scale color, yeah. Yeah, I find that glass has worked fine with my my Vallejos and scale color pan. The glass really does work okay, in my experience. But again, I typically add a little bit of water. Or I doctor them with a flow improver or something like that. You know, I tend to take every paint I own and turn it into a Master Series paint. So I add a bunch of additional crap to make it act more like I like. Just gonna get some of these streaky bits down here. So like that. So you just have the suggestion of some boards here and there. Then we can accentuate those just a little bit. Oh, hematite beads are really inexpensive on Amazon? That's great to know, because hematite is non-reactive. And that would be a great heavy solution that wouldn't be metal. It's just an oxidation concern, because if it starts to oxidize, your paint can go south. Maybe I'll pick up some hematite beads if I run out of, I've got some glass ones from Reaper that I snagged a few before I left. And I don't need it because I mostly use Reaper, or if I'm using another company's paint, I'm using the tube paint from Scale 75 instead of the bottles. I tend to like the finish a little better there. But so I'm getting some white so that I can mix a little bit of highlight for my wood grain here. Oh, that's not bad at all, Declearman. Dang. Hematite's non-reactive, I believe, Pangene. As long as you've got, it should specifically be non-reactive. But glass is non-reactive material, and there are other ones as well. I believe that hematite is one of them. I mean, maybe not, but I recall it being one of the things. Non-reactive to water, anyway. Since it's mostly water-based paint. So a little bit of extra oomph here with this. If you want your texture to come out a little bit more. But yeah, if somebody finds out that hematite is not a viable option, then please let us know. Yeah, but who needs 1,000? There is such a point, like, where I'm like, you know, I know that I'm getting a lot for this little bit of money, but do I really need that? I guess if you had a crap ton of, like, other companies' paints that you wanted to put agitators in, sure. Especially if you were putting, like, 2 agitators in at a time and you had, like, 500 bottles, then yeah, you could go through 1,000 that way. There we go. Just a little bit of suggested texture there. I can thin down those lines a little if I want. And do a little bit up top. Yeah, lifetime supply. I just would never use that many Rex because I don't use, I almost use all Master Series. So for me, it's like I buy a string of hematite beads at, you know, Michael's, and I'm done. There we go. So yeah, that created a little bit of texture there, just a little bit on the back of the shield, and it fades off as it goes back farther since, you know, there's very little light back there. But that turned out pretty well. There we go. So yeah, now it's a little bit of basing. I don't know that I'll do the basing on stream. Maybe I will. Maybe we'll go back and forth between Miss Vonsoleil and the basing here. Maybe we'll do a bunch on her and then I'll switch over and do the basing. I do want to do kind of a Forge Glow, like an orange highlight on some of this coming from the side or from the front, because he's got a lot of orange on him. I could probably get away with it to make a bit of an orange highlight on the gray, which I think looks pretty cool. But yeah, so oh, you bought a 100-pack and thought it would last you forever. Well, yeah, then makes sense. Alrighty, so yeah, let's see, what is it? We're at 11. I can keep working a little bit. Maybe I'll grab some orange. Orange. Ah, oh no, too much water in my wet palette. I didn't unfill it last night. I'll probably pay for that. Go and sit over here, wet palette. Where's my orange? And the orange that I most like to use for this, I own, is Fire Orange. Fire Orange. And that'll also put some orange in the base to go along with the orange in his beard. There we go. I've been using it. Bryce, I used it Friday, I think. I was using my new Limbo one. I ordered the, they had it for like really cheap. They had a little green one, and I happen to like neon green. So the color aesthetic of the wet palette appealed to me, and I bought it because it was cheap on the Limbo Kickstarter. It also had a white sponge, which is something I've been seeking for the stream, to have a white sponge instead of a yellow. So, and it's smaller. Kind of like it. But yeah, I mean, what was I doing, guys, on, was it the, I think it was the statue, right? It was because I was using, because I was finishing, where is she? Oh no! Oh, I put her in the back. Hold on. I was finishing this girl, Bryce. And since I was finishing her, I had bronze I had to do, I had red I had to do, and I had stone I had to do. So I essentially needed to access a whole bunch of different colors. So the wet palette was really nice for that, because obviously I can, you know, put little dabs, tiny dabs of everything I need out, and I'm not wasting as much paint as if I mixed up big puddles. But yeah, she's done now, so she'll go to Ron. With the package of other models going to Ron. Reaper uses volcanic glass, I thought. Or glass. And Reaper was thinking of changing that up, so I can't speak to that anymore, Pendrake. I cannot tell you the information. Because I don't know what Reaper's currently using. Ed was talking about changing it. But Ed can sometimes talk about stuff and then it doesn't happen for 2.5 years, and then suddenly, poof, it happens. So yeah, I can't actually tell you. I can tell you that the glass beads that we were using absolutely had holes drilled through them. It doesn't really hurt. Might take a little bit of the mass off of them, as far as how well they function as shakers. Alrighty, let's see here. Get my orange mixed up. Get a tiny bit of white added into it. The white is for opacity, but I still want a little bit of transparency. Boom. All right, where's my light coming from? Up top. So grab some orange. Let's see if I can make this work. I like highlighting gray rocks with orange anyway. So this is just an opportunity to highlight stones with a complementary color a little bit, almost, if they have a blue cast. And the more you build it up, the more orangey it will get. You can always take your, well, too big doesn't fit through the aperture. As long as you don't overflow your bottle when you put the bead in, I think you're fine, Pendrake. Don't overthink it. So getting kind of, see how that warm orangey glow kind of reinforces like the orangey light on a lot of other stuff. And if I really wanted to, this is a time I could take this orange and kind of glaze it over a lot of my other highlights. Like if I really wanted an orange light source, I can take this orange and tint everything else toward orange to make it more, make it seem more real. So make my black go up a little bit toward orange, add just enough so that it looks that way. My purple is too bright probably for an orange. I would have to really, if I was doing real realism, this purple would have to desaturate under an orange light, but you know. I don't know. I think there is definitely a lot of overthinking in this hobby. And I feel that it is a detriment sometimes, Pendrake, because it becomes a detriment when what you are overthinking about doesn't really matter to your end result and keeps you from just doing it. So a lot of people may like waffle back and forth on the best way to do X instead of just jumping in and trying X and seeing how X works. And then I think it's overthinking. Like sometimes like you ask how big, I'm like, as long as it fits in the bottle, it doesn't matter. So if you sit there and try to analyze what's your best size bead, then yeah, I think it's overthinking a little. Sometimes I even get frustrated when I'm trying to teach if somebody is overthinking something. And it's like, don't sit there and ask yourself the question. Just try it. And if it doesn't work, you can always just adjust it. You're going to learn more by just trying it and seeing the result and experiencing that than you are through thinking about it, where you're not testing anything. You're just thinking. Your little brain is having fun spinning in circles. Our brains love to spin in circles. Do not give them even more grist for that mill. Our brains will spin in circles and we will never get anything done, and our brains will be perfectly happy. Until your other part of your brain over here kind of wakes up and goes, wait, I got nothing done. Yeah. Well, yeah, eat to surf, but okay, let's like saying, you know, oh, I'm never going to do this because blah. Then you're just giving up. Like, you've got a choice, right? You can either say, oh, but I overthink everything and that's just the way it is, or you can try to work on it, and it's your choice. It's your choice. I had a friend for a long time who, like, when she worked at her craft, she was brilliant. Like, she had some real promise. But she was convinced that she was lazy. And that she would just let herself spin in circles, and not actually work on the thing that she was working on. And she felt that because she was lazy, she would never amount to anything. And instead of tackling that and saying, you know what, I'm not lazy, I just need to get down and make a habit of doing it. And it really hurt because it was just like, it was entirely her holding herself up. And I think it's a thing. It's a thing we do to ourselves. I do it as much as anybody. I just try to always, when I see myself do it, I try to say, oh no, we can't do this. I don't want to be that person. But yes, many of us are OCD. But I consider it something to fight, something to challenge, more than to bow to. I don't want to ever use that as an excuse in my own life. Again, your mileage may vary, and if you have serious issues with OCD and, maybe even meds for it, like that, then that's the way you're going to try to work with it. But everybody works with their own things on their own schedule. But don't fall into the trap. Like, believe you can do it, I guess. Believe you can progress, despite your OCD. Yeah, analysis paralysis. No, I don't. Eat surf, it depends. Like, often I will tend to go with a frontal downward light source. So that's why I'm kind of, and even more often I will tend to go like angled. But lately I've been going like doing some weird light sourcing. But the standard overhead light sourcing tends to be diffused overhead in the round above the head. And so the light is falling down here. So that's why I'm adding the highlights to the front triangle of each of these. And not putting anything on the back, probably, because he's in shadow there. What to be anxious over. Anxiety, actually, Buddhism has an interesting... what was the quote I heard the other day? I forget what it said, but if you're something, you are worried about the past, and if you are anxious, you are worrying about the future instead of living in the present. So many of the things that we worry about aren't even things that are going to come true. We just worry about them incessantly. I am a big worrier, so I've been tackling this in my own life lately. David is the one who really has turned me on to how much I actually worry. I would never have pegged myself as a worrier before, but he's made me really see it. So I have to remind myself that I can't worry about it. I just have to move forward. And, I just try to put it out of my mind as much as I can. If I notice myself worrying, I refocus on something else. Usually something good and fun. So I feel you on the worry. I guess it would be anxiety. I've never called it that. But there we go. Nice pattern, nice warm highlight on our stones. Hey, Dicey Guy, what's up? Oh, I think it's if you have depression, then you're worrying about the past. I don't remember. I'll have to look up the exact quote. It's like a Buddhism kind of quote made by a monk guy like centuries ago, which shows you that people were still depressed and anxious, even back in the 1200s or whatever, right? It isn't something we've invented. It's just gotten worse. There we are. Yeah, I like that. I like the warm highlight a lot. I don't know. It depends on how you receive it, Eat. When he told me I was a worrier and that I worried too much, I didn't take it as a personal attack. I took it as feedback. Like, I would never have seen it if he hadn't alerted me to it. So it's not something that I would ever, I love him more because he's brave enough to say this crap to me. Understand, though, that I come from a history of relationships where there was not adequate communication, and that's why those relationships are in history and not current. So one of the things I love about David is he will tell me right up front when he sees this kind of behavior. If he sees me do something self-destructive, if he sees me do something that's not in line with my goals, he will let me know. And that is beyond valuable. That is that's real honesty there, where the person isn't afraid you're going to just break up with them because you told them something they don't like. Boy, that would be immature of me if I punished David for making me aware of a flaw that I want to work on. So you got to think of it. You got to think of it. Think about it. Frame it, right? It's not criticism of me. It's making me aware of something that I need to work on. That's the way I frame it. Not upon the whole. That's good stratocumulus. Yeah, exactly, Rebecca. Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, I really hate meds. Yeah, true friends want to help us be better, and true relationship people too. True significant others, Bryce, right? That's the ideal relationship, is somebody that is going to call you on your crap. Oh, Laozu. Taoism. Thank you, Eat to Surf. I do kind of like Buddhism and Taoism and all of the isms over there. I like Eastern philosophy a lot. More adept at recognizing it. That's true, Greek Nikos. Yeah, that is a tough part, but you know what? That's about them, not about you, Eat. Like, when somebody has a bad response and lashes out, it's not about you. You did your best for them, and if they don't want to, if they aren't in a place where they can take it, then you just have to kind of put it, go, I'm sorry? Okay, bye. You know? We'll talk to you again later. But yeah, it is tough. I mean, I've gone there with friends. I think we all have. But it's not, just remember, it's not about you. Don't take it personally. You did your best for them. I'm just putting some orange in these highlights. And some orange in my highlights here, just for fun. Now I have lots of orangey highlights, and I'm happy. And his face looks nice. Let's paint the rim. We'll say that he's officially donified, and then we can start on Vonselay next time. So remember, for those at the start of the stream, we are doing Half-Orc Wizard. We are replacing this guy with Bobby Jackson. Yeah, same. Yep, Eat to Surf, exactly. Although you should never, like, look down at people for that. I mean, they're just working through their stuff as best they can. And some people are better at working through their stuff than others. And some people, get better at it during the course of life. Some don't. It's just people. And you get to decide if you can accept them for that. And if you can still enjoy, being their friend or not. Or if it's really just poisoning your friendship. Like, it's a thing. You do what you can. I mean, the most important thing is what you do for yourself, though. I think. You just put a nice dark rim around this nice shiny base. Usually I do, unless there are a lot of bags. If there's a lot of bags in different leather Eat to Surf, then I will, I'll change. Like Halfling Girl here, I have her bags done in darker leather, and her legs are actually, these brown straps are going to be coming up a lighter leather. Actually, I decided to make them lighter. And then her arm guards here are also a black leather, just like this. And then they also have more of a brown strap. So often I'll decide to make a lot of the straps the same color, like if there are a lot of straps, or if they're a main part of the model where there's a ton of bags and straps and it's obviously a main design point, then I might make 2 different colors, maybe 3, but mostly I'm going to keep it in the realm of a couple different colors. And to mix it up and make it look interesting, I'm just going to do weathering on it like I did on the scabbards here, and do it that way, make it more interesting that way, rather than throwing a bunch of different colors of leather on the model, because you get to a point really quick where you're using a color of leather that actually counts as a color. Like black is a neutral, gray is a neutral, dark brown is a neutral, cream is a neutral. But then when you start using reddish leathers, orangish leathers, yellowish leathers, those count as colors. Those can mess up your color scheme super fast. So it all depends on what you're going for. But here on her, she has a lot of different surfaces and stuff. So I'm going to be varying up her leathers between 2 different patterns, 2 different colors. But on a 28, I tend to go a lot more tight, especially because we've got this brown metallic. I felt like dark brown leather wasn't really something that I could do, so I decided to go black with the leather. Yeah, just watch it, because if you use leather colors that have a very orange or very reddish hue, that counts as an orange or red in your color scheme. So, like a reddish leather will interact with a green on your model the same as a red will. So that's something to remember when you're choosing leather colors. You can still get yourself in the crazy color corner through your leather colors. They don't all count as neutrals. And there are purplish browns too. Like I'm actually, I think, going to use nut brown for those leather straps on the halfling. Okay, get this in here. I think I need actually to make my black a little thicker. We're almost, yeah, we're about to the point where we can stop it, actually. But his front is done, so I can continue his back after we're off camera. So yeah, next time, 6 days from now, next week, Wednesday, we'll be starting Vanselet, the half-orc wizard. We'll probably be doing her in deep reds, and I'm going to use some olive colors for her skin and see how we can switch it up. But yeah, she'll be fun. She'll be fun. I think I'll probably do some freehand on her skirt. So there is our dwarf Smiter. Yay! We finished another model, guys. Look at that. Oh, don't ignore this part. Ignore this part. This is the not done part. There. Ta-da. There's nothing to see here. There we go. So there's his medals. There's his stuff. Handcuffs. Everything good. Ron gets this one too. Ron's getting a bunch of models. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because chestnut brown tends to be a red-orange. So remember that browns are often muted oranges, so they'll work that way in a color scheme, which means that blue is complementary to them, right? Because orange and blue across the color wheel. I do a lot of things. I talk about a lot of color on the screen, but even more on my Patreon. But yes, I should work in a different colors of leather PDF. But yeah, into a disco dancer. But yeah, there we go, guys! Yay! And now we'll start a new mini. Yay! I'm kind of trying to replace minis with like minis. So like you could play this guy as like a dark dwarf or a dark iron dwarf in WoW, you know. And so half-orc wizard could also be either a bad guy or a good guy, right? So that's why I'm kind of, when I switch up to a new model, I'm trying to keep my monsters. I'm trying to keep my, you know, my PCs, and things like that. So thank you all for showing up. And tomorrow is Sphinx Day, I think. I think Sphinx Day. Oh, no, wait. Oh, yes, wait. Yes, tomorrow is Sphinx Day. So, Sphinxy Day. Yes, thank you very much. Reaper, do we have a raid? But yeah, I think I'm actually pretty happy with how he turned out. I think he's a nice little dwarven possible PC. And I like the purple. The purple and orange worked really well. All right, Sky Daddy, go over and say hi to Sky, everybody. I'm going to run out and like get my lunch prepped and go for my walk. And I hope to see you all tomorrow. Have an excellent day.